That's a really good point. The way that the internet has influenced the fighting game community is so vast. It's like information gets like thrown way faster than it used to. And so like if we're talking about like how fast or I would say how easy it is to learn fighting games. I would probably say it's the easiest time to get into fighting games and learn and to grow than ever before. But it's also one of the hardest eras because now that everyone has that information, everybody can grow, and not everyone grows at the same rate, even though they all have the same information as each other. And so that adds competition, and that's where the stuff like Ryan F is talking about, where it's like people are going to compare themselves to other people, especially content creators who it's their job to be good at video games. The people at home are going to compare them to them, and it's like, well, I'll never get there. Like, they have so many advantages. It's like, yeah, they have the advantage, but you still have the tools to do that, you know? Yo guys, what's up? It's your boy TRUEDBZ back with another reaction video. In today's video, I'll be reacting to Brian F, which is a Street Fighter player who streams and is a pro player. And he has made a video about learning in fighting games. And apparently it's a rant of sorts, so we'll have to see what he says about learning in fighting games. There's multiple perspectives that he can take here, whether it's about the community, whether it's about the developers making learning fighting games easy. There's multiple different avenues he can take with this discussion, but we'll have to see what he says. And this topic is very interesting because I don't think a lot of people talk about the learning process about fighting games. Usually people that do discussion about fighting games usually only talk about like meta or the community itself or developers, but not really about the very specific learning aspect. And it looks like this might actually have some interesting topics. So with all that being said, please go to Brian F's channel. In the description below, I will have his channel and his video there, so please support him. We do want to support the people we react to. Be sure to watch this video as well, either before or after this video, because we want to do our due diligence and give him the support that these videos need. And before we get into the reaction, please hit the like and subscribe button on this video if you enjoyed at the end. It does wonders for my channel and helps me stay motivated to create more content like this. Also, be sure to check out the links down below. In the description are my links to my Twitter and Twitch account. My channel artist page, bossumans, on Twitter and TikTok are there, where he posts his artworks and commissions. And finally are my playlists there as well that will provide you with more of my content. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into Brian F's video on ranting about learning fighting games.
Hey, what's up? I don't really have anything planned for this video, but I left a rather agitated response to a YouTube comment, and I figured rather than doing that, I deleted the comment, and I figured I would just rant to you guys. And I wanted to talk a bit about the idea of setting negative expectations for yourself and the harm that I believe that causes. And I think there's an epidemic of people who don't understand that they have within them the innate ability to learn and to grow. And this is a self-defeating.
Okay, that is not... that is rather an interesting topic. I want to see what he says, but that's interesting. That's not something I was expecting for a rant about learning fighting games. This is an interesting perspective.
Mindset I see all over the place, especially in the realm of fighting games, because I think fighting games are really brutal and really confront you with your weaknesses.
Yeah, they really are.
I don't know. I just wanted to talk about it a little bit because it seems to be something that it always comes up whenever I talk about educational videos. Really, what spurred this rant I'm about to go on, I believe, is I put out this video, the Ultimate Street Fighter 6 Starter Guide for 2025 here. You might have different thumbnails based on what YouTube decides to deliver to you. Double A and I worked really hard on this video, and I'm really proud of how it came out. And it's basically an introduction to Street Fighter 6, and I figured with the recent like Capcom Cup 11, Sage M Slam, I figured this would be like a good jumping off point now to like do a really well produced and concise introduction video to Street Fighter 6. So
yeah, and here's the thing about Street Fighter 6. It has grown tremendously over its release. Like, a lot of people are really into Street Fighter, including myself. Originally, I was very interested in Street Fighter because, you know, the story mode and the characters and stuff like that. And then I would say probably around the first DLC, I kind of stopped playing for a little bit. But now that I have a local that I go to, I'm actually really getting into Street Fighter, and it's a really fun game. So, and I've also seen like events like Seijan Slam and stuff like that online that involves like other content creators, especially VTubers, that have really grown the scope of Street Fighter and maybe fighting games as a whole.
So in this video, I build on my experiences from coaching in Seijan Slam, and I present a sort of dichotomy between the approaches of someone like Dokibird and someone like SK. And in the intro, I reference them here. Well, I was also a coach in the very first Seijan Slam for Street Fighter 6, where I was able to successfully coach players like Dokibird to become the most feared player in her division, and also players like SK, who started the game from scratch and went on to become Master Rank.
Let's go!
And this brings us to our... Yeah, so I kind of dropped that to establish both like my credibility as a player and a coach, and showed that I've had success in helping new players achieve success in this game. And then I, you know, throughout the video, I kind of reference approaching it from more like modern controls, instant wins, mind games with Dokibird, and more like long-term foundational planning with SK. Kind of just serving as a juxtaposition as we go through the whole video. But a lot of the comments are rightfully so about how SK, you know, like, oh, SK, you know, just keep in mind, you might not have results as soon as SK. It's a long time. It can take a long time to learn and grow, and don't be disappointed if you don't have immediate success, which I think is all...
I wonder if their perspective is that they're gamers, and most people that play games aren't quote-unquote gamers, like they casually play games. Whereas people like SK and Dokibird, that's their job, is to play games. But I do agree that like everybody can grow regardless of how much time you put into a specific thing, even in fighting games, where even if you have only 2 hours a day to practice, even if you are in the lab for maybe like 30 minutes, and most people don't even do that. Usually they only lab for like 10 minutes and they just play online. Even if you do that, you will grow eventually, right? So everybody has the ability to grow, regardless of how fast or slow it is.
Fine and good. But sometimes I feel like the tone and the source of these comments comes from a really messed up place where I almost think they do far more harm than good. I didn't go into it, but yeah, SK's case of how fast she got to master, I believe was within like 2 months. It is a rather exceptional case because for SK is literally a professional content creator and streamer, so she's able to dedicate all of her time playing ungodly amount of hours to practice at the game. She grinds very hard. She's already been a high level gamer in Overwatch, Deadlock, Marvel Rivals, right? She understands how to learn. She's learned how to learn and has applied that to many different game genres. That is the skill, I think, of any pro gamer. A lot of them have learned how to learn. Now, not every gamer that reaches like really big heights in whatever game that they compete in is able to transfer those skills that effectively. You see a pretty common trend of high-level competitive gamers being able to take their talents across different genres and mediums because there's a common thread of learning how to learn, and someone like SK has mastered that. A lot of these comments I saw about like, oh, keep in mind it's exceptional. It is exceptional. That's a fact. But sometimes these comments go to the other extreme. Their comment was saying, keep in mind, you might not get to master rank. It might take you 1 year. It might take you 2 years if you're a brand new player. It might take you 3 years. You might never get there. And I'm thinking, brother, 3 years for master rank? The game has not even been out for 3 years.
Yeah, that's a little excessive.
That some people never progress, but I don't think that's inherent to them. I don't think that's really a problem with the individual, and I don't think the goal of getting to master rank is something that is unattainable. I firmly believe that
and I don't believe that ranks in video games are a necessary thing to prove that you're skillful. Like, for example, in my experience, I've played Dragon Ball FighterZ since it came out, and if you look at my PlayStation account, which is the main platform that I play, I only played ranked for a very small amount of time. It was only in like, I would say middle of season 2 to season 3 is when I actually decided to play ranked for the first time. And that's like year 2 into the game. So the entirety of the first year and a half, I didn't touch ranked. But I was continually learning the game, learning characters and stuff like that. So I would say on average, I was probably like maybe like a Super Saiyan 3 level person, but I didn't have the rank to show that. And by the time I got to like season 3, when I got to season 3.5, I was way better at the game. And now, like, I feel like if I actually applied myself in ranked in Dragon Ball, like, I could probably get to Angel rank if I really tried. Like, yeah, I'm a little rusty, but if I really applied myself, like, I can get Angel rank, Zeno rank. I could do it if I really tried. It's not the fact that I can't, or the fact that it would take a long time. It's just the fact that I don't necessarily put the rank system in a game as evidence of my skill. My evidence of skill is the knowledge that I accumulate over a period of time. If they play with friends or train offline than actually play the game mode of ranked, it's not an accurate level of it's not accurate, because for example, like myself, I mostly play fighting games with my friends, and I learn from each session. It doesn't like matter who I'm playing against. I learn every time I play against them, whether it's learning defense, offense, neutral, whatever. I still learn from those experiences. So even though I don't have the rank to say, oh yeah, I'm this rank, so I'm this skillful, it's like I know the knowledge. I know certain matchups. I know how my character works, right? So like I don't need to play ranked to say I'm this good at the game. I can just tell you or show you that, yeah, I know what I'm playing. I know what I'm talking about, right? And I just feel like a lot of people try to tie their skill to ranked mode when that's not necessarily the case in most situations.
In most cases, the barrier to reaching a goal like Master Rank, based on how the Street Fighter 6 rank system functions in and of itself, is due to a lack of guidance, such as coaching, so that they can have focused practice to work explicitly on the issues they're facing to add to their skill set overall in order to continuously improve and progressively overload in their talents in the game. I think maybe the resources haven't reached them that can help them guide them. If someone was able to work hands-on with them, directly with them, I firmly believe that nearly anyone on the planet can be coached to Master Rank. Obviously, there's exceptions. I do think your own predisposition in life will color all of your outcomes, of course. Your genetics, your ability to learn, your time especially. I think time is the number one component.
Yes, time.
And motivation, right? Like,
Right.
do you really want to put the work in to do it, right? But I think for the vast majority of people, I think the default assumption we can assume is that you can do it.
Yes.
You can do it. And I do believe there are major exceptions, of course. Like, for example, yeah, there are players who have been playing Street Fighter for 30 years and they are stuck in Platinum rank. They are stuck. And I think they're going to have a much harder time potentially than a new player. I think people who have ingrained in them these patterns in Street Fighter 2, they never quite learned the game on a deeper level. They played more casually at the arcade back in the Street Fighter 2 days, or mashing on, Super Nintendo with their siblings and friends. And they were satisfied with that. And as the years went on, and as the different iterations of Street Fighter came out, they never really moved beyond that. And as the competitive scene grew and grew, and now the advent of the internet and people sharing technology and understanding these game engines on a much deeper level, and as communication kept progressing, people were learning faster and faster.
True.
They often tended to not grow with the times.
Yeah, that's
for a player like that.
That's a really good point. The way that the internet has influenced the fighting game community is so vast. It's like information gets like thrown way faster than it used to. And so like if we're talking about like how fast, or I would say how easy it is to learn fighting games, I would probably say it's the easiest time to get into fighting games and learn and to grow than ever before. But it's also one of the hardest eras, because now that everyone has that information, everybody can grow. And not everyone grows at the same rate, even though they all have the same information as each other. And so that adds competition, and that's where the stuff like Brian F is talking about, where it's like people are going to compare themselves to other people, especially content creators who it's their job to be good at video games. The people at home are going to compare them to them, and it's like, well, I'll never get there. Like, they have so many advantages. It's like, yeah, they have the advantage, but you still have the tools to do that, you know?
That, I think they're going to have a much harder time improving, because not only do you have to learn new skills, you have to unlearn your intuitive ways of understanding the game. It's double the work, maybe even more. I don't know exactly how to quantify it, but you're gonna have to unlearn a lot of things to make room for new ways of approaching and new pathways in your brain. And as you get older, that just becomes more difficult, right?
Yeah.
So I actually think the older player has a much harder time in terms of growing and getting over these plateaus. For newer players, though, you can do it.
Yeah,
you really can. I think it's so. I understand that these kind of comments are coming from like the position of, don't set really high expectations or unrealistic expectations for people so that their ego doesn't get hurt and they get demoralized and quit. Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, don't make it seem like it's impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
Brother, you can do it.
Yeah,
It drives me.
It's like two ends of the extreme. Like, you don't want to set your sights too high, but you also don't want to put them so low that you don't have any motivation or you think it's pointless, right? You want to find that balance of, this is where I am right now, this is where I could be, and how do I do that, you know? Thank you everyone for making it this far into the video. Just gonna take a quick break to do some shoutouts. First, shoutouts to my friends' channels. Please consider checking them out, as they provide a variety of content, so at least one of them will have something that you'll enjoy. Second, if you live near the York, PA area, please head down to Ready Up Gaming Lounge. It's a place where gamers from every genre can come together and play in a comfortable and chill environment. They are open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day and hold dedicated events every week. For my channel's interest, they run Fighting Fridays, where for $5.30, you can play a multitude of fighting games with various players. They have big games like Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but they also have niche games like Dragon Ball FighterZ, Guilty Gear Strive, Rivals of Ether 2, and more. Finally, shout out to all my supporters on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. You guys really make doing content fun and worth pursuing. Alright, back to the video.
Nuts when people act like they can't learn and improve things. I see this all over the place in terms of people approaching fighting games. You can do it. You can learn skills. It's not an impossible task. This genre is not particularly impossible to learn, to be competent in. It is not. I think it's just a little bit more psychologically difficult because the 1v1 aspect and how immediate the feedback and the negative feedback is. I think it's a little more difficult psychologically. But it is, I'm telling you, it drives me nuts when I see this defeatist mentality and people try to spread it like it's a positive thing for protecting incoming players. There's a balance for sure, but man, I don't think it's helpful to say to somebody it's going to take you 3 years to get the master rank, because it's just not true.
It's not true. Yeah.
So many players from Sage Jam Slam, beyond just SK, have gotten to master rank as brand new fighting game players in a couple of months. I've seen so many brand new fighting game players improve really fast, and that's because, for one, they're probably maybe D-Gen gamers and have a lot more free time and responsibility, so that will scale the rate of your achievement for sure. But beyond that, they learn how to learn. They've been embedded in competitive gaming for such a long time that they understand like the process of internalizing, breaking down problems into smaller and smaller ones that are digestible, finding individual solutions and then piecing it together to build up their overall skill set. They understand that.
And the way an example of that is how combos work. So for example, in my own personal experience, when I began learning Street Fighter 6 again for my fighting game locals, one of the biggest hurdles was me learning how links work and how combos work in Street Fighter. Because a lot of the games, or I would say pretty much all the games that I've played, have the chain system, where like normals cancel into other normals in a very particular sequence, and in most cases normals can cancel into special moves, making combos a lot easier and makes things flow nicely. Whereas in Street Fighter, there's only like very specific normals that can be canceled into special moves or be canceled into drive rush. There's a very particular amount of moves that does that, right? And so you have to link different normals together through frame data, learning the math about how the frame data works, right? And that took me so long to learn that, like, oh, if I do light kick here, if I do light kick into light punch, then I can do this move, or I can't do this move because it's too slow, or it doesn't link together, or it doesn't have any cancels. Like, it took me a long time to learn that, but now as I've been playing Street Fighter 6 at my local, I want to say for at least a couple months now. Like, I'm very confident that I can do Street Fighter 6 combos because I put the time in to learn and to ask people about, like, okay, how do links work? How do you do the frame data math? Like, how do you do these things? Well, I looked at other people, I looked at videos, I asked people for advice. I've played on my own time. I've played in tournaments before. Like, I get that experience, and I'm well confident that, like, if you gave me time, I can learn any combo in Street Fighter 6, and that all it comes down to because I asked and I practiced in little teeny tiny steps. At first, I was like, okay, how do links work? How do frame data works? Okay, and I know how frame data works. Okay, so how does this normal go into this normal? Well, if this normal is +6, then I can use a 6 frame normal to go into that, and that combos. Like, I break it down, and so as I learn how each normal works for my character, then I'm like, okay, this links into this links into this. Like, you break it down instead of trying to learn the whole combo or learn the whole strategy of a character at one time. You break it down into parts. And so that's my example, is like, you trying to learn a fighting game combo is that you break it into parts. You begin with the first 2 normals, and then once you learn the first 2 normals, then you go into the next normal, and then you go to the next one, and then you put it all together. And so that's how you learn in a lot of cases for most people. Most people can only learn by breaking things down smaller and then putting them together. A lot of people can't mass learn something. Most people can't take an entire concept and just learn it all at once. Most people need for it to be broken down. And so it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
And that's a unique, or rather the opposite, that's a generic process, right? And I think a really good video that helped communicate this very succinctly, well, actually the opposite, it's a very long video, but it really encapsulated this phenomena really well. It's by Sane Retry. It's this video, The Skill Issue, or How I Learned I Could Learn, So Can You. Also, Capitalism is a Disease. Hour-and-a-half video essay, but listen to this opening segment here.
When I was a kid, one of the absolute worst things my family taught me was this false statement: you cannot learn to be good at things.
It is a false statement.
Yeah, that's false.
So
yeah,
many
no.
people have been taught this. This opening monologue, he goes on, describes how his grandmother, while she was mostly a positive figure in his life, would always instantly squash any effort he made in terms of producing art, in terms of developing a talent in some ways, because if he didn't show instant progress at it, instant results, instant skill, instant potential, it was squandered and met with negativity, saying, this is bad, you were...
What kind of family figure does that? That's so bizarre to me. Like, do people, like, not understand, especially from a previous generation, that skill takes time? Like, I would argue that the newer generation would make that argument just thanks to, like, social media and the fact that and technology, and the fact that, like, things are a lot easier than before, whereas his grandmother, who's part of a previous generation, had it way harder to learn skills and way harder to do things, and that they were bad at things and they got better over time. That's so weird.
Bad. This is not something you should spend your time on. He goes on to explain like the root of that was, because she grew up in the Great Depression, and any time spent focusing on skills that didn't receive immediate return on investment in terms of making money was detrimental literally to her survival in terms of being able to put food on the plate and be able to survive.
Now, I'm not going to judge this guy on his story or his grandmother or anything, but that is such an extreme example. That is so extreme. Like, I get it. It was traumatizing. Like, I can't even imagine living in a world where, like, literally, like, you can't find a job. You can't even take care of yourself because of something completely out of your control. I can't even imagine how stressful and chaotic that situation is. But the fact that you project that onto your grandson in that kind of way when the situations aren't anywhere close to the same, like, it boggles the mind, really. I'm not judging, but I'm just saying, like, the whole concept of teaching someone that in a very different position is so bizarre.
Really great video. I think anyone should really watch this, especially the first like 20 minutes or so. I think that tale, it's heartbreaking in a ways, but I think it describes a lot of people who I think unfortunately have had a similar upbringing where they weren't nurtured in this way where they realize that you can be bad at things, start bad, and continue to progress and get good. You do not need talent. You do not need to be good at something. You are bad when you first start.
Yes.
Everybody starts out bad.
Yes.
Like, I think that's also missed from a lot of people, this mentality that you have to have instant results. You are going to get beat, and that's part of the process. In fact, that's your feedback mechanism. You keep losing, and that helps you give feedback on things you got to improve on.
Right.
And how do you filter that and break down that complex, abstract problem? You lose. It's a very abstract thing. There's many things that contributed to that loss. How can you start picking away at that to break that down to digestible pieces and solve those problems one by one to, complete the whole and eventually make progress and improve the skill. Great video, highly recommend it, because I think the root of a lot of people's issues with fighting games, it's all up here. It's all in your mind.
Fighting games is mostly mentality nowadays. It's very mostly mentality. Back then, I would argue that it's mentality and execution, because fighting games in the past were a lot harder because of technology, the way controls worked with like complex inputs and being on an arcade machine or just being on a fight stick in general. Like, older fighting games are definitely harder than newer ones. So I would say execution is not the issue with newer fighting games, it's mentality. Can you push through and continue playing and continue learning even when you're getting beat? Either by players, by a specific matchup or character, or are you getting beat up by system mechanics? Like, what is it that you're losing to? And can you find out what it is? And then also, can you find out what's the answer? And that takes a heavy amount of mental fortitude and patience.
And I firmly believe that. There are limits to everything we can do in our life. Of course, I'm not saying you can become a rocket scientist overnight. I do think we have our limits, but I gotta say, I think for example, master rank, I know I always get flack for this. I don't think master rank is a super unattainable goal. This is from September 2024. I don't know if there's any more updated visual statistics.
I don't think any rank in any game is unobtainable, unless it's like literally like number one, whereas like there's only going to be number one.
People reach the next tier and they stop playing because like, oh, their ego is satiated. Oh, I got to whatever X, Y, or Z rank. I'm happy. So often they kind of fall off at that point. But you can see as you get closer to the next tier, you push through to make it into the end. You can see as an individual rank, master is actually the highest. If you exclude the sums of the individual sub tiers, platinum 1 through 5, for example, most players per individual rank are in master rank. The rank system in Street Fighter 6 incentivizes this continuous growth that has inflation built into the point system. You gain more points than you lose until you hit master rank. And then people have issues. There's a whole other can of worms that I eventually do want to get into about getting into master rank, because you start out at 1500 to keep the average of points always evenly distributed. But really, you're gonna fall. Like if you barely get into master rank, you're probably around a 1200 MR player. So people have a really brutal reality check when they get into master rank, because they go on a losing streak to stabilize where they actually belong in terms of relative skill level. And that's pretty harsh. That's harsh for players to get over. Not sure if there's a better system for that.
I don't really know how
Elo
rank
system,
systems work all
maybe
too
just
much,
having
so I
those
don't have
expectations
commentary
going
on
into it
this
could
one.
help. Different topic. Anyways, I think you guys can do it. I think it's not healthy to assume like these goals are so unobtainable. Getting master rank is not winning Evo, for example. Of course, you might not make it to master rank considering you might not put in the time, the effort, and there might not be enough resources. I think the number one problem is an education problem, a resource problem. Filtering down the process of learning what you need to learn as you progress through the ranks. It's an education problem. It's not a you problem, and you can do it. Believe in yourself, please.
I feel like it can be a you problem. If you're not honest with yourself, you won't get any better, right? There's a lot of scenarios where it's like, oh, like for example, like in Dragon Ball FighterZ, one of the biggest like pain points is like super dash, where a lot of players at higher ranks don't really care about super dash that much. Like, yes, it's an annoying mechanic, but they have the reaction speed and the discipline to react and to process super dash, right, as a mechanic and how it works and stuff like that. Whereas players in lower rank think it's the most broken mechanic in the game, and so most people don't climb in ranks in Dragon Ball because of the fact that like, oh, they keep getting hit by super dash and they die. Whereas like if they were honest with themselves, then they're like, okay, I'm getting hit by super dash because I'm not being patient. I don't 2H. I'm not reacting. I'm just mashing 2H and hoping that it'll work, right? If they're honest with themselves, they're like, okay, well, in this match, I didn't 2H here. So let me put this scenario in training mode and get the feeling of 2Hing in various situations. But a lot of people aren't honest with themselves when it comes to when they lose. And I think that's the problem. So like, yes, it's an educational problem, but I also think a lot of players just don't want to reflect when they lose. And that is a them problem. So I kind of agree with Brian F that it's not a you problem per se, but I think most of the time it is a you problem.
Pains me to see this idea passed around. It is difficult. It is challenging. It's not going to be overnight.
Yes.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if you keep working at it and you have the right help along the way, I believe you can achieve your goals.
Yes.
I truly do. That's all I have. I'm ranting. Thanks for watching. Peace.
All right, that was a pretty good video. All right, so very good video from Brian F. Definitely not the perspective that I was expecting from a video like this, but definitely brought up some really good points. Once again, I definitely do think there needs to be more education and videos and resources for people to get better at fighting games, and I think it just needs to be for gaming in general. And I think the stigma of fighting games being like this ivory tower of like only a certain amount of people can be good at these games, it is dramatically decreasing over time, but it definitely still is a vast majority of the casual player base of video games in general. And so if people like Brian F and other content creators and other pro players are willing to teach people and provide content that allows them to be understandable, but I also don't really agree with the notion that it's only an educational problem. It is a you problem if, like I said, if you don't be honest with yourself whenever you lose and whenever you win in fighting games. If you're not honest with yourself and you're not willing to act upon that honesty or criticism or whatever it is, then you will not climb and you will not get better, because getting better means to be honest with yourself. If you are not honest with yourself, you're not going to get better at anything you try to do. That's a fact. If I'm drawing a picture and I'm not honest about whether the lines I draw are factually straight or factually curved, that I can draw this thing that I'm drawing, if I'm not actually honest with myself, I will not grow as an artist. Same goes for fighting games. You have to be honest with yourself, and when you are honest, be able to act upon it. And so, yeah, I do think that is a major pain point for a lot of casual players. And so I do feel like there is a you component that is responsible for a lot of people's ivory tower conclusion when it comes to fighting games. And you know, you can't really change that in people. You can just give them resources and answer questions and provide help whenever they ask, but it's up to them on whether or not they want to receive it and act upon it. So, whew. Alright, with all of that being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please support the channel by hitting the like and subscribe button. Be sure to check out Brian F's channel, and please check out this video in the description below. Also, remember to check out my other links in the description, and I really hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and please support Brian F and his videos, support me, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next reaction video. Have a good evening, and sayonara.